Hey guys, I wanted to thank you for welcoming us into your home and feeding us. What are we having tonight?
We are having cauliflower rice burrito bowls.
All right.
So, yeah, super excited.
We were very excited to come over here and eat because actually we break up our day by when our next meal is.
Pretty much the whole time.
Every 3 hours.
Don't we all?
I'm hungry, and when am I eating next?
Don't we all?
So we're excited to have you guys on. I feel like there's so many things for us to talk about. Before we get started, I want to give you guys a solid introduction. So Sue is the epitome of what it means to go full Amazon. She joined the Army straight out of high school, serving the 1st Infantry Division in Germany as a counterintelligence agent, so pretty badass. While in Germany, she met her first husband, had 2 babies, and started nursing school. I don't know when you started it, though.
I started nursing school when my kids started school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they started kindergarten in 1st grade, and I went to nursing school. Yeah.
She is not only a nurse, but she is now the owner of Evole Apothecary and Spa on Hope Street in Providence, Rhode Island. Most importantly, though, she's a good friend of mine, and we'll get into how we met eventually. And Scott is one of the smartest people I know. He, yes,
That's a big title, Scott. That's
very, very smart.
That's a big flatter.
Sometimes you just talk and I'm just like, huh. I have no idea what you just said.
That's all right.
Scott is an anesthesiologist. Him and I used to work together. And you went to school in Texas.
Yes.
So just tell me a little bit about your education.
I went to college at the University of Texas in Austin. It's very ancient history now. And I went to medical school in Houston. And then I did the rest of my training on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. And eventually I ended up on the East, up here in Providence.
We're all transplants from our exes.
Absolutely. That's right.
I'm actually
All
born
my
and
exes
bred.
don't
Oh,
live
you were
in
born and
Texas.
bred.
I'm a born and bred Rhode Islander. Yeah.
Oh, there
Only
you go.
one. Only one out of the group,
I
Jen.
am. That's funny. And in Rhode Island, that's not really
That's
usually
not
the
very
way it is.
common,
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about plant-based eating tonight, but I kind of wanted to talk about just a little bit of our history together because it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So Sue and I met, I think it was 2003. We both started working in the pediatric intensive care unit at Hasbro Children's Hospital, and we worked a lot of night shifts together, and we had a lot of moments together.
Love those shift differentials.
Yeah. When the patients were sleeping and there was some downtime, we had a lot of moments where we would sit and talk about, where our lives were and where we were going. And I think we both always knew that we were going to be somewhere further along the line than we were in that moment.
I would characterize us as both restless and both looking for something else.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. We always just knew that this couldn't be it.
Something was bigger on the other side.
Yeah, and when we worked with career nurses who had been in that unit for 20 or 30 years, God bless them because they were brilliant women and they knew those children inside and out and they knew the unit inside and out. But I don't think either of us saw ourselves as somebody who would be able to stay in that environment for 20, 30 years until we retired.
Yeah.
That takes a really special person.
Yeah.
And I knew that I would do it for a couple of years and then, it's a difficult place to work.
Yeah.
And we were at difficult places in our personal lives while we were working in this difficult place.
I think we confided a lot in each other too, because both of us I think our marriages, I would say, are fair to say that they were on the downslope.
They were rocky. Yes, they were. They were rocky. Yeah.
And, there's just something when you have that connection with someone where you can talk about how rough life is going and have that at work. It's very hard to find.
It was definitely a no judgment zone.
Yeah.
I could tell Tara, and I knew that she wasn't going to judge me or look down at me, and it wasn't going to end up being the gossip on the floor for the next 3 months. If I told her, she was going to go, yeah, that really sucks, and some really nice language. And of course, the children never heard anything.
Yeah, never.
Never.
We were always professional.
And, she wasn't going to judge me, and she was just going to listen to me. And, and I think I offered the same.
Yeah, we became instant friends.
Yeah.
So then, I can't remember who got divorced first. I think it was me.
I think it was you.
Yeah, so I got divorced first, and then because my timing is impeccable, I decided that it would be a great idea to go back to anesthesia school right in the middle of a divorce.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do, right?
I'm like,
That
I have
makes
4
sense.
plates up in the air. Let me just put
You
this
needed
5th plate up
change of
here.
pace, right?
Yes.
Change of scenery.
And I was like, I can do it.
School must have been it.
And Sue was one of the people that pushed me. She was like, you've got this. Like, you're going to get through it. And I did. Like, I remember studying, like, in the bathroom while the kids were in the tub. You know, I'd have these flashcards and, waking up in the morning and before they got up to study. It was just like you had to find these pockets of time to fit it in because as a mom who's divorced, you're not, you're not like the other people in class who, are single 20-somethings that have time to go to the library and do all that stuff.
No, you were amazing doing it. You did it. You may never have felt graceful doing it, but to the rest of us, you looked graceful. You're like, yeah. And you
that's
have
such a nice thing to say.
And your parents were so supportive. And I just remember thinking she's really doesn't see it right now how difficult this is.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of people like holding her up and supporting her and surrounding her.
There was a lot
with love.
of fetal position moments and crying. I actually remember I failed an exam because I just didn't have time. It was like take care of the kids or study for this exam, and I failed the exam, and they were threatening to kick me out. And I was like, oh my God, all this work, and it's going to go right out the tubes. And somehow the universe opened up, and
I think that's
someone gave me another chance.
That's when you and I. That was shortly around when I went through my divorce, and we ended up working out together at Evole Fitness.
That's right.
And we used to go and work out and lift weights together, and you were always like challenging me, like whatever you read in the fitness magazine. I was like, let's do these step ups and twirls and jumps. And
She's still doing that, just so you know. We may have done that at 5 o'clock this morning, as a matter of fact.
It's like, what are we doing today? This looks good.
Those are the babies.
Just some wild, vicious animals on the prowl.
Yeah, so that's kind of, but we've always stayed in touch, and we've always found our paths intersecting at different times.
Yeah, and then Sue got divorced, and I want you to tell me a little bit about the path you took, because you went into nursing and then clinical manager, and you've taken all these steps, and now you own your own business, which is just freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's so when I was going through my divorce, I had my boys were 17 and 18 then, so not at all ready to face the world on their own, but it wasn't a time when you got child support or custody every other weekend, and they ended up with me, and I needed to be able to support them, and nursing has always afforded me that opportunity, like to just be able to put a roof over my own head and food on my own table and not have to worry about being in a marriage. And so I did. I was managing the post-anesthesia care units at Rhode Island Hospital, and then I ended up meeting Scott, and we got married, and it was, both of us had these really super busy, demanding jobs with horrible hours, and something had to give somewhere in order for this marriage to work. So I stepped down, and then I was kind of lost for like a year and a half. I was like I tried school nursing. I tried like being just like a regular floor nurse on a surgical center, and it just wasn't for me.
You went back to school and became a personal trainer.
Yep. I got certified as a personal trainer
and started a business.
Yep.
But
I'm not good at one-on-one training.
Like, she didn't like it.
Like I can't count your reps all day. Like it's just not. That wasn't for me. And I was like, this isn't for me. I just kept looking, and
she's awesome in a small groups. Like if she has a group and they're at different stations, she's unbelievable. But one-on-one just kind of bored the hell out of it.
Yeah. And so then my Yolanda, who I think Tara knows from the hospital, called me one day. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm drinking coffee. And she's like, no, what are you doing with your life? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm looking for a job. I need to find something I want to do. She goes, let's open up a business. We're too smart. Let's go into business for ourselves. And I was like, all right, well, I have an idea. And that was it. That was on August. And then November 1st, we opened the doors. So it took us like from August 1st to November
2017?
15.
Oh, 15.
So you knew you had the idea, like you knew of the idea.
I've been kind of mulling it around. There was a store that I liked a lot that I thought was good, but I thought it would do really well in Providence with a few changes. And I had talked to the woman about it, and she was not at all interested. And I'm like, but maybe I should just do it myself. I could do it my way and do my stuff. And that was what I did.
Yes.
Yep.
So what is the store? So tell me about the store.
So Evolve Apothecary and Spas on Hope Street in Providence, Rhode Island. We're also online. And so as nurses, you know that the largest organ in your body is your skin.
Yes.
So everybody is all worried about clean eating and what they put in their mouths and what they put in their bellies, but they're slathering crap all over themselves. And if you think about, like, I always like to use the analogy of a nicotine patch. So you put a nicotine patch on your skin, right? It affects your cravings. It affects your mood. It can affect your weight. So it gets absorbed into the skin, travels through the bloodstream, and has this effect on your central nervous system. So do all of your beauty products.
Yeah.
So does your shampoo.
Yeah.
So does what you put on your skin. So we wanted to. People are really starting to become aware of that. And when I started to really think about it, I thought it's really hard to find the products, and it's really hard to find good products, and what are they made of, and where are they coming from, and how are they sourced, and so that's the whole premise. So we carry skincare, cosmetics, body care, laundry, baby care, but everything is we screen all the ingredients to make sure that it's the best that we can do for you.
And I have to say, everything I've purchased from you has been absolutely amazing. And just the other day, I had my mom call you.
Yeah.
Because it's my cousin's birthday. So I was like, oh, I don't have time to go shopping. And you're perfect. So I was like, call Sue. She'll curate a box for you. And you just have to tell her budget. So that alone is huge.
Yeah. We do that. We'll wrap it all up, ship it, handwrite a card, and put little stuff in there. Yeah. So it went out.
Beautiful.
It went out. It's adorable. Yeah. Super excited.
Oh, that's what you did today?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's super fun.
So actually, I think this is probably a good segue because you're talking about your shop and how the skin is the largest organ, and I think people are starting to see this movement where we care about what we put on our bodies and into our bodies. And I recently just became a plant-based, athlete in January.
Yes.
I just decided to do it,
Nice.
and I remember talking to you, and you were like, if you have any questions, Scott and I are the people to talk to.
Yep.
So how did you guys get involved in it?
We've been plant-based for over 3 years now, and we started, I was really, right before I opened the store, I was really sick, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And so now you have this doctor and a nurse, and we're like, what's going on? I had developed arthritis in my hands. I couldn't even open a jar. He would come home and be like, can you open this for me? And
We couldn't. She could not have made this dinner.
I couldn't,
She couldn't have opened any of the jars.
getting steroid shots in my
It
hands.
was unbelievable.
I had
how
peripheral
bad it was.
neuropathy in my feet. I couldn't, when I got out of bed in the morning, it was felt like my bottom of my feet were on fire when I was walking across the floor. I was having GI issues, horrible GI issues. My mouth was continuously full of canker sores, and I was having upwards of 100 hot flashes a day. And I would count them. I would have 3 to 4 an hour, and they would just go and round the clock. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm like, this must be some sort of autoimmune disease. Nothing's making sense. I wasn't getting any answers. And I was gaining weight, rapidly gaining weight. And I've always had to struggle to maintain a healthy weight. I love to eat. I have a wicked sweet tooth. But this was out of control. So I found this book called The Little Book of Thin. And she gave you a bunch of guidelines. And one of the things she had to do was if you wanted with dinner, you could either have pasta or bread or dessert or wine, but you couldn't have all 4. So I had my wine.
Yeah.
So I gave
That's a fruit, right?
Yeah, it's a fruit. And so I ended up giving up pasta and bread, and I stopped drinking dessert, and I stopped drinking beer. We would go out and have a beer after work or whatever. And within 2 weeks, the majority of my symptoms were gone, cleared up. And along with that, when it cleared up, a lot of my anxiety and depression went away. So that was, I said to Scott, I was like, this might be a gluten intolerance. I'm like, I've always hated those people who said they don't eat gluten, because I've seen that children that are really sick with celiac disease, and I respect the disease, and I respect what people who have celiacs have gone through, and I didn't want to be one of those people who are like, no, I'm gluten insensitive. But I felt amazingly better. And I was talking to my brother who had been plant-based for I think he was about 6 months at that time, and I was saying, I might just give up dairy, and maybe that'll take care of my allergies, my sinus allergies. And he's like, if you're gonna give up dairy, just give up everything. He goes, just give up meat. You're gonna feel so great. Watch this movie called Forks Over Knives, and tell me what you think. So,
And he also so two things. He said, listen to this podcast,
yep.
this Rich Roll podcast, and what was it, 125 or 128? I want to say it's 128.
I think you're right.
And the name of the cardiologist is Joel Katz, and he's a cardiologist at the Cleveland Clinic. And he talks about the evidence for plant-based diet. And we listened to that, and in that conversation, Forks Over Knives came up as well. And Danny, her brother, said you should listen to this show. So she said to me, let's watch this documentary tonight. We'll watch Forks Over Knives. And we watched it, and finished at the end of the show. I looked at her and I said, we're going to have to do this. We don't really have a whole lot of choice.
Scott's family history is tough. He has a brother who we lost last year to a blood cancer, and he has another brother who at a very young age was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So there's there's a real, and we've only been married for 5 years, and we're in our 50s, and we're like, we want to live a long, healthy life together, and we want to have a lot of fun. Like, how do we stay like strong and fit and healthy, and we want a life. We don't want a long life. We want to live a life that's full, and so that was kind of what prompted us, and everything we've done and seen and read and heard since has like cemented it. Like, I run a marathon, my first marathon ever at the age of 51, solely on a plant-based diet. Like, I just, it's...
No injuries.
I
didn't have any injuries.
I trained from May through December, never had an injury, never missed a day of training, never got sick. Like, it's...
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. And actually, I do listen to the Rich Roll podcast. And actually, I think I kind of traveled the same way you guys did, but I watched a different documentary. I watched...
What the Health?
What the Health.
That's really good, too.
Right.
And I think that if you don't watch the other one, that would be the one we would recommend that you watch, What the Health.
Yeah.
So then I ended up reading How Not to Die by Dr. Michael
Greger.
Greger.
Did read that.
Oh, and I love it because I love that there's study after study in every chapter that supports everything he's saying. Because a lot of people, when they found out I was doing this, I had a lot of people give me flack. It's the common thing, like, where do you get your protein from?
Oh my gosh.
The
protein question!
That's like the most non-question ever. We really got to stop talking about food in terms of these macronutrients that we really don't.
The fitness world has gone crazy about.
Yeah, but it's they're just catching up to where we were years ago, I think. And most of these, and I know people may disagree with me, but everything that we're eating here, every plant that we are eating tonight has protein in it. And all of the cells that we eat have protein, and some of them have more than others. And so there is not a single documented case on the planet of a person with a vegan or vegetarian diet who is protein deficient. You're only protein deficient if you don't get to eat, if you starve. So that's really not an issue. In fact, the deficiency that most people have that we don't talk about is fiber deficiency.
Right.
And the fact that there's so many people have GI symptoms and GI problems is because we don't have enough fiber. And that's never a problem with somebody who's plant-based.
So can I ask just a dumb question? Because this is so brand new for me, and I'm totally learning this as we go along. What is the difference between plant-based and vegan?
Oreos are vegan.
Oreos are vegan.
Oreos are vegan. So if you think about it that way, so we try to eat foods that are close to being unprocessed. So we try to eat mostly like what you see in front of you. Like, so
mostly
we know you guys
food.
can't see this or smell this, but we have cauliflower rice that's seasoned with salsa and cilantro and lime. We have black beans that are seasoned with chili powder and cumin, and then we have some sauteed peppers and onions. So everything here is like in its like close to its natural state.
Yeah.
So vegan is also an acceptable term, and they're interchangeable, and people are kind of funny about it. But plant-based, people who say they're plant-based really try for the most part to eat
kind of whole.
kind of whole foods, almost like the Whole30.
Yeah.
But without the meat or dairy.
Right.
You know.
So the other thing about vegan is that it conjures up a political movement or a political thing.
It's people have an emotional response to vegan.
Yeah, and what we have found is that wasn't really an issue when we started at all. But after you stop eating beef and those types of things, and you realize the conditions under which we treat these animals, you start to get a little bit more. What would the word be? Sympathetic and because I think that a lot of these animals, unless you know where they're sourced, if you're on a farm and you take care of your pigs, and when your pigs get older and you slaughter them in a humane way and then you eat them, that's one thing. That is not what we get in the supermarket. We get in the supermarket the most horrendously treated animals who are slaughtered because they're for money, and it's really a lot of the ways these animals are treated is unconscionable. And so it's not that we started that way, and it's not that I am militant about it. If we have something that has cheese on it accidentally, I'll probably eat it. I won't send it back. I won't eat beef anymore. Just because the texture is a little weird now that I haven't eaten it in so long.
Yeah.
But if somebody cooks something I've ordered and I think it's vegan and it comes in and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, that's made in chicken broth," I'm not going to send it back. I'm going to eat it, but I would prefer not to.
I wouldn't eat it though. I can't eat it anymore.
Because you notice the physical changes like right away.
Yeah, and I just like it, just the taste and the smell. I just don't enjoy it, and it's not anything I will do anymore. He's better about it. I just won't. And I'm also particularly careful because gluten really bothers me still. And I just, like, if I get exposed to that, I can be sick for a couple of days and not feel really great.
I liked one of the ways that Dr. Greger described it. He described it almost like stubbing your toe. So every time you eat a meal, it's like stubbing your toe and creating inflammation. You never heal. Like, you keep eating this next meal and this next meal and more inflammation and more inflammation.
It's so, and it's so frustrating. It's like, I just was reading where California, I think, wants to make it so that alcohol is, that they're labeling it a class 1 carcinogen. And I'm like, well, that's great. But did you know that beef is a class 1 carcinogen? Like, it causes cancer. And Harvard University just came out yesterday. And I think the statistics, and I may be wrong, but Harvard University just did a study showing that if people would switch to a primarily like an 80 to 90% plant-based diet, that we would decrease we would extend life expectancy, and there would be a 33% improvement in people who are dying at young ages from diseases. You would pretty much wipe out diabetes. Pretty much wipe out cardiovascular disease.
Yep.
And it's like the strongest statement out there that I've seen so far on what a plant-based diet can do for you. My blood pressure is like I said, I'm not ashamed of my age. I'm 52 now. My blood pressure typically runs 104 over 60. My heart rate hovers in the 40s or 50s. My cholesterol level after like 2 years was normal. It was like a low normal to begin with. I was pretty healthy. It dropped over 40 points. And my physician was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I eat plants." And he's like, what are you doing? And you would not have the need for statins, which are a class of drugs that are used to treat people with high cholesterol that are horrible. Their side effects are brutal, and they shouldn't be on them. So it's like, this is like the cure.
Yeah, I think we do have surgeons that will say, "Oh, it should be in the drinking water," and it's like, no, you should talk to your patients.
But and even to now, to go into a grocery store now, I look around and I look at people who are shopping in the grocery store, and I'm like, they're buying poison. I want to go up and say, "You're poisoning So I'm becoming a little bit weird about it,
Yeah.
and I'm not happy about that. I like my plant food, and I'm pretty. My children are not plant based; they're grown adults, and I'm like, you do what you want, but when you come to mom's house for dinner, you're gonna have not gonna have it.
You're gonna have to pregame with meat.
Yeah, pregame. Which is fun. Like I don't judge other people, but I just
may
feel,
have done that. I took a picture. I said I did. I jumped in the car with Tara tonight because we drove a little bit to get up here, and I'm like, so is it really bad that I'm going to our plant-based dinner with pre-gaming some meat?
No, because it's your journey. Like we have different journeys.
Right.
Yeah, I know. But I just want you to know that I
are.
am like really loving this education, and really, I really am enjoying it. So I don't want you to be over here being
no. I'm gonna get. And there's we've had it took 3 years, and I think now we pretty much have it down to a good science. Like where we meal plan on the weekends.
So can you tell me what is so what is a day of the meals?
Oh,
I
so-
want that's what I'm because I'm like I want to know what you eat.
Can I'll just answer a little bit. So I just want to give you a little background.
Yeah.
When you start, it's really difficult because you think that being plant-based means you eat salad, and you eat salad all the time for 3 weeks until you cannot look at a salad, and you end up feeling very trapped and like, okay, now what? I think the problem is I surmise from all this stuff is that I never learned how to grill or how to roast. I never learned how to roast a vegetable when I was a kid. I used to grill all the meat for the family from the age of 12. Because I grew up in Texas, my mom would say, "It's too hot for me to cook in here. Go outside and cook that, on the grill." And I'd cook the dinner all the time, like almost every night. So it was not like I was only a little meat based. I was primarily meat based.
Yeah.
That's what we ate.
That's what you eat in Texas.
So one thing. So all I was going to say is that we never learned how to do that, and so what it takes is in part is finding some cookbooks that you really enjoy, starting to make those meals until you become comfortable with them, and then you can whip it up. But I can throw a burger on and whip that up in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem. I can do that now with plant-based food, but I couldn't when we started.
Yeah.
That's part of the journey. So go ahead.
So we always have chickpeas, lentils, and black beans are a staple in the house, and it's much cheaper to buy them dry. And the Instant Pot is amazing. I can make
Instant Pot. I keep hearing about the Instant
yeah.
Pot.
Oh, man.
The Instant
It's
Pot.
like
I can
crazy
take a
Instant
dry
Pot.
black bean.
Do you have one? What does it look like?
Yeah,
I'll
look
get it
for
for you.
Right,
So we have
everyone keeps talking about the Instant Pot.
So usually black beans, if you want to cook black beans, you have to soak them overnight, and then you got to simmer them, and it's an all-day thing. This, you throw them in the Instant Pot, you fill it up with water, and my cheat sheets on the thing takes 18 minutes once it comes to pressure, and it's done. Yep.
Yeah. This is
Oh,
an
that's
Instant Pot.
so
Holy
hot.
moly.
Oh my
It's
god.
basically a pressure cooker and
It's a pressure cooker and slow cooker.
Which
all
one
in
is it?
one.
That's the big guy, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the big.
that's the big one.
So I'll do black beans, chickpeas, and lentils on the weekend, and then I freeze them. So 1.5 cups is equal to a can, and then I just put them all in containers and freeze them so that we have them for the week. And then I'll do a batch of rice and leave that in the fridge. But a typical day, I'll have a smoothie in the morning, just like a lot of people. I'll usually do a cup of frozen kale and spinach, a cup of berries, hemp hearts, or silken tofu.
Those are the protein sources that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Or chia seeds. But chia seeds, to me, sometimes can get a little bit slimy in the smoothie, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I like hemp hearts better. Lunch, I'll do it's like a chicken salad, but I make it with chickpeas, and you actually mash the chickpeas, and you get this really fun texture. It's like chicken.
Delicious.
And I do it with just like you do a chicken salad, but I do it with a vegan mayonnaise and peppers and onions and everything cut up, and I'll make that on Sunday and have a bowl of that in the house for the week. And then for dinner, we'll do tonight we're doing the burrito bowl. We do a truffle pasta with a cashew cream sauce that takes 20 minutes to make. We'll do what else do we do?
What do you mean?
Shepherd's pie, but we'll do with mashed potatoes and lentils in place of the beef, and then I'll do a rosemary gravy that you make with usually with a nut-based milk and seasonings and stuff. It's super easy to make, so we'll do shepherd's pie or that's the chickpea salad.
I hope you don't ruin your dinner.
That looks so good. Thank you. Oh, this is so great.
That's chickpea chicken salad.
Yeah, Yep.
We have
Some.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to try.
We can share the same stuff.
I never turn off food. Yeah. I don't know if you care we double dip, but
I don't care. I do the
That is
same.
so good.
Yeah. So that's like lunch. And I'll bring like some gluten-free crackers with that, or sometimes I'll do it over a bed of spinach. And
That's really good. We
Yeah.
need to add that to our list.
yeah, so that's kind of like a typical day.
Yeah.
But and now it's pretty easy.
I think that's great that the both of you are on board. I mean, that's been the challenging thing for me.
It's a hard thing when you have somebody who's...
My family is not on board.
Well, and you have 5 kids. I mean, so it's
Yeah.
not just you and Pete. It's like, but all the kids too. Because
Yeah.
I keep thinking in my mind, I'm like, my kids, like, I mean, would revolt. And they would move to their father's house. I mean, I just, they really would, you know. But I feel like they need it more than anything else, because at this point in their lives, like, this is when like brain cells and all the things that we know about little bodies are like really something that they need, and they would rather eat a bag of goldfish, you know.
Yeah, but I think with kids too, like I think you can like there's definitely smoothies like that's like a milkshake, and you can do that
Right.
like with almond milk and make it creamy.
Yeah.
If you throw an avocado in a smoothie, it makes it super rich and creamy, and it doesn't taste avocado-y, but
Yeah,
it gives
I
it
do that. I trick them a lot with that stuff.
Yeah, so you could do that. Like, and I think the other thing, my brother's raising his children vegan and
Hey,
or
you
plant
gotta
based,
be
and
quiet.
he started with them when they were young, so they don't really know anything
Quiet.
different. And he's not like militant about it. Like they had hot dogs at a game one day, and he's like, "Well, if you want to, if that's what you really think you want to eat," and they were so sick afterwards, like, "Dad, I'm never doing that again."
Oh.
But,
So their bodies are used to eating
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
way, and they
Yeah,
actually
and
have a
that's-
physical response to it.
Yep, and that's their preferred food. But like Taco Monday, like you could do black beans and taco, like you know, like there's ways to like slowly, like
You guys start, like, slowly
one
do it.
meal. You don't like
Yeah.
just announce like with kids, you can't just announce it and
Yeah.
do it cold turkey. But
No, and it's funny because I do have one, like my younger one, which is really interesting. Like my 7-year-old, like he is a vegetable fanatic. I mean, because that's really, I mean, I do eat a lot. And of course, I do have a little bit of side of meat, but in fish and chicken and things like that. But he's
It
the
looks
one.
delicious.
I guess we're going to do this right here. Aren't
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna do
I know
it.
you set the table too all beautifully. So, but this is, you know,
yeah, for
this is kind of how we do
talking,
it.
Talking and eating.
Okay.
talking and eating.
So it's just so fascinating because I think that he would be one that'd be easy to do it. My older one is a little bit more picky, so he doesn't let me get creative with him quite as much. But
Yeah, and it's I think we're lucky. It's us, and the kids are older, and
Right, so...
Yeah.
well, Tara and I talk about it all the time too, because being exposed to the society as we are now in the hospital. I mean, especially, you know, in where we are. You know, we unfortunately are in a hospital, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess, that we're in a hospital that takes people for surgeries that other hospitals won't take without any kind of weight loss program or something like that. So we're doing joint replacements on people that would BMIs of over 50.
oh my god,
Yeah, I had 2 this week, actually, as a matter of fact, and you know, and it's, you know, here, yeah. So, and they will tell you, right out, oh, you know, another hospital wouldn't do it because I had to lose 100 pounds, and they wouldn't do my surgery, but you know, they were allowed to do it with us. So that's a whole nother topic, but we talk about it frequently. I mean, because here she has to deal with those patients in the OR. I deal with them, and then in the PT side. So I'm the one who's trying to get them moving, and so thank God I'm fit and healthy. But you know, there's going to be a time where my back is going to be like, yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But so we see the side of we see the side of the world, and we see it's so sad and it's so tragic that people mindset is
Because almost everything that people have is a lifestyle disease.
it's his lifestyle. disease.
Hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, they're all lifestyle diseases.
It's so frustrating to me. One of the things I struggle with right now is the movement where we're trying to have people accept themselves and love who they are and love their bodies. And I absolutely 100% agree with that. Like there's so many things I could tell you. I could write a list 100 things long that I don't like about my body. And like, you know, learning to accept yourself is huge. But I wish people could learn to accept the best versions of themselves and the healthiest versions of themselves, and learn to love the body that will serve them
The best.
best.
Yeah.
I knew exactly
I
where you were
love
going with
that.
because
Oh,
that's
I love that.
That's such a hard, because as soon as you start to say that, people start to think like, oh, you have expectations of how people are going to look, and it's like, no. It's like, I just don't want, you just don't want to get people to the point where they are like, well, it's okay to be obese. This is who I am. Like,
Well, and I
I
think-
love myself. And it's like, well, if you were anorexic, people would be all over you, telling you that you're slowly killing yourself. And we're very scared to say that
To the people
you're
that are
obese, you're killing yourself. It's no
Exactly.
different.
But it's interesting because I think that's what, Tara and I were so passionate about starting even this podcast, because really it took us a little bit of time and here we are, we're tall and we're thin and we're healthy, but like we're big, and so I know even my best version of myself, like there was a time where I was 125 pounds, super anorexic, super skinny. I was living on coffee and cigarettes, like, working out 3 times a day, but that wasn't the best version of myself. I thought I looked good. But so for me, like my best version of myself is like 155 pounds, like, 5'10", 150, 160, where I can maintain that. Yeah. So I think that's the message, is that like your best version, like you were saying, I love that, because you don't have to be 400 pounds. You could be 200 pounds and maybe that's your best version. Or you could be, maybe it doesn't even be tied to a number, but more about like what's comfortable for your body to sustain.
And I think that what everybody at this table sees is what happens when those diseases do grab hold, and they will grab hold. You are not going to be you are not going to have a BMI of 50 and not have a whole bunch of other diseases that come visit your doorstep. And we see the effects of that. We unfortunately, when I actively worked in the hospital, I always felt that my job was to bear witness. As a nurse, I would bear witness to your life for whatever that moment in time was. And when that patient was in the hospital bed, I would see the faces that the children had when they walked in, or the spouse would have. And I always want to say, just like, take care. You are worth it. You are worth figuring out your shit and figuring out whatever's going on mentally, emotionally, and physically to get yourself to that best point. It's not easy. I struggle every day. You guys open about your struggles.
Yeah, actually, someone just told us that we need to be more vulnerable. And actually, I will say, I was overweight as a kid. I grew up in a household where everything revolved around food. And if you did not have 2 or 3 helpings, there was something wrong with you. It was just eat, or you don't love me because you're not eating my, a second or third helping of my meal. And I was just tall and big, and I got beat up in middle school and stuffed in a locker. I don't know how I fit, but I did get in the locker.
How did you do in there?
No, I get it. I have, no matter what I've weighed, I have cellulite. I mean, come on, my ass looks like the moon landing sometimes. There are craters. It's dimply. There's nothing perfect about, we all have these flaws. We all have these things we don't like. I grew up, I was Bucky Beaver. I was made fun of for my teeth. My parents, God bless them, put me in braces in 8th grade, but those scars of being handled, being when the kids would hand you their pencil and say, well, can you sharpen my pencil? I mean, kids that bullying is there and it lives with you, and it's so I think we all get it. We all know, and
so there's things we do need to accept. Like there's physical things about our bodies we need to accept, but I don't think we need to accept being sick.
Yeah, but I really we can go back to a little bit, and you can maybe help me with this a little bit. So I'm new into the healthcare world, only as a career. I was obviously in it a long time because my father was in it, but obviously saw that was a different perspective. But so what's my biggest struggle has been recently is that, so I'm very empathetic, and I have this giant heart, and I get very involved and very engaged with my patients, even though they're only there for 3 days, and it's not like that, but I don't. And what happens to me is that then I end up finding that I have nothing to give, and then I have to kind of go home, and I have 2 little children to take care of. I'm a single mom, and this last Sunday, I remember feeling like I had nothing. I was completely depleted. Yeah. I had come off of a weekend shift, and so in the weekends, the families are all there, and I'm and I what I love about my job is what also depletes me. So I feel like my heart is like my superpower, but it's also my kryptonite. Yeah. So, and I don't know the balance of I find that I just want to do that. I want to be engaged, and I want to I want to, but I know that there's going to be a point where I can't do that.
There's a really
totally change the subject, but
and I think it's the same subject though. It's always about self-care, and it's always about giving what you can give, and taking care of yourself and looking after your own needs, because you will not last in your career unless you learn how to manage that. And your children, it will definitely take a toll on your relationship with your children, and whatever relationship comes down the pipe. You have to learn how to.
Yeah, I can't even think about dating right now because I'm like, oh my god, if some guy wanted me to talk to him or rub his feet or anything, I'd be like, I got nothing for you, buddy. I got nothing left. There's
a really neat exercise that I didn't learn till later in my career, and I learned it from Scott's cousin, who's very spiritual. She, Tara was at our wedding, and she was our minister.
Yeah.
And she's very much about energy fields and managing your energy and other people's energy and letting other people's energy in and out of your field.
Right.
And when you are in a hospital, you are just in this huge amount of energy.
And
So-
I feel like I'm an energy, like...
yeah, you're a sponge.
Yeah, I'm a sponge.
You're an energy sponge, and you are going to take it
I
all
am.
in, and you're
I
going to
am.
feel it, and it's going to become part of you. So, what you need to do at the beginning of your shift, like I used to do it when I was walking into the hospital, I would visualize this gold light starting at my feet and coming up around me, and I would picture this like gold light, and it's just coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, and it's over the top of my head, and now I am in my shield, and that was my energy shield. So nobody's energy could come in and mine wouldn't go out. It did not make me less empathetic. I was still able to go in and give my patients the care that they needed, but I didn't have to transfer that energy.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to practice that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's exactly it.
Yeah, you've got to protect your energy. Yeah.
And I remember being in school, and I remember having that experience, one of my first clinicals, and I remember coming back to school and being like, "You're teaching me how to do this." Like I remember struggling with it, and talking to some of my professors, and I'm like, "This is something that needs to be taught," because I was an older, obviously, student, and some of the 20-year-olds and the 15 or the 19-year-olds, they probably weren't experiencing that because they just didn't have the level of maturity that I had. And so here I am, I'm getting the life sucked out of me because I love these patients so much, or whatever it was, and I didn't expect it. Which I'm not surprised that I should have expected it because I know who I am.
It's really hard, especially if you have an empathic personality.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. I have a really good book too. I'll share with you.
Okay,
later.
that'd be great. Yeah, because I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm going to burn myself. I mean, I've thought that. I'm like, I'm going to burn myself out, and I'm going to be depleted where I can't have the things I want really in my life, which is a relationship with my children and a relationship with my future him, whatever. Right. I mean, that's something that I want. So I don't want to, be depleted.
And it's so funny because I used to be like you, and now like we joke around that I have a black heart because sometimes I'm just like, no, I don't have energy or time for that nonsense.
Yeah.
So
well, and you have the ability. You turn
Yours are asleep.
you turn them off. You turn their energy off. You like wake them up and give them somebody else. You have the
like there's too many feelings.
too many emotions.
Too many feelings.
It is a difficult environment, especially if you have that personality type. It used to grind me down to nothing, and it's get your boundaries up.
Yeah, and that's probably why I work out a lot.
Yeah,
But there's a time where, and I know for me, I read this book recently called Quiet, and it's about being an introvert in an extroverted world and really kind of nurturing that in people. And how, people think I'm a super extrovert because I have this big personality, but the reality is that my power and I fill myself up in quiet.
Yeah.
And so I have to remember that. So when I do have those moments, it's like I need to be meditative or be in stillness or be with my cup of tea or reading a book and not being out social. And it's hard because some of my friends are like, I also want to have a life. So, but I know there are times where I have to be like, no, I need to just stay home and be quiet.
Yeah.
Which was the book was fantastic. And even raising kids to really watch that and see how they are as people, and to nurture that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Pizza crust.
Oh, it's very good. I'll have to give you the recipe. But I don't think you can have it 'cause it's got brown rice flour in it.
I substitute gluten-free. Brown rice flour is not gluten.
Okay.
Gluten is
Wheat flour. Rice flour is not.
So I think there's tapioca flour in it,
Tapioca's fine.
flax seeds,
That's fine.
and then the brown rice flour. And then I put tahini paste in it,
Oh wow, yum.
and then some spices, and I'll have to look up what else but I'll give you the recipe.
Yeah.
That's good. That
Oh,
one's
awesome.
like, I've played with a few of them, and that's been the one that I'm like, okay, this is a keeper. I got to use this one.
Yeah.
You do also a bean burger, don't you do that?
Yeah.
You do that one a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
Because it's easy.
I know. I have to do the easy stuff too.
I will say that's the one challenging thing with the plant-based eating and lifting is I'm always hungry.
With
So
lifting,
I eat a ton of beans and a ton of tofu.
You said you're always hungry?
Yeah.
Keep a jar of peanut
That's
butter.
what.
Yeah.
I
And
do that.
also, it may be that
Especially
you,
like especially when I run. Like when I
Yeah.
was training for the marathon, I was really getting up in miles. I'd be hungry all the time, so it would be like I'd mash a banana in a bowl with a tablespoon of peanut butter, and that'd be
Yeah.
like peanut butter banana, peanut butter
Oh
banana.
my god, that sounds so good. That's like my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
I do the almond butter though instead of.
And I have to laugh because my boss knows me well now. He's like, all right, go get your food like in between cases, because I know you. And I'm like, I know, I'm hungry again. It's like meal 3 time. I don't know. I just, I'm just one of those people. Like I just find pockets of time. Like sometimes if I'm in a long case, I'll jot down ideas for a podcast because my brain will just go. So I keep index cards in my pocket all the time. I look like a crazy person. She saw all my notes. I'm like, this
Which is
from
good
my-
because I have to fly by the seat of my pants. I mean, thank God she's like that. So I mean, it's like we have a good thing working together because she's very organized, and I'm like, where are we going? What are we doing? I'm like, okay, here we go. Because I don't have the time to unfortunately do that quite yet.
Tara,
I haven't
I'm
buckets.
curious how you feel. You're 4 months in,
Yeah.
and 4 months. I remember 4 months, so I'm just curious how you're feeling.
Oh,
What,
right, so
what
that's
have
a
you
great
noticed
question.
that's different?
So actually, the first thing I did was, because I'm kind of a science nerd, is I wanted my labs drawn just to get like a baseline
Oh, that's
and to
good.
see.
Nice.
So
good
I
idea.
actually didn't change my eating until I went and saw my PCP, and I was like, all right, I want like all my like lipid profile done and all that stuff. So I'm
Right.
waiting to see what's going to happen.
Oh, so you haven't done the second set?
I haven't done the second set yet, but
gotcha.
I have noticed that I sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
I sleep like the dead. I don't hear anything.
Mhm.
And then my lifting has actually
Gotten better.
Gotten better.
huge, like
Ridiculous difference.
ridiculous difference. Which
What happened with me too?
like my bench press was at like 105, and then actually like her and I worked out last week. Actually, this is like
This is a
funny
very
story.
funny story.
So I'm lifting, and I was like, God, I feel like I can go like heavier. And so I went to like 110, 115, and then it got to 125, and I was like, holy shit. So I went to go lift it up, and I'm like lifting it up, and she went to go
She
help me.
almost
I was
looked like she was gonna drop it.
like this exorcist voice came out of me, and I was like,
So
don't help me.
I went to go spot her. I literally went to go spot her, and she's like, "Don't!" And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
It's funny that one of
But
the
that's a
things-
huge jump.
It's
a huge
like 110 to
25.
125.
Yeah, that's 15 pounds. So that's a 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
10%
huge.
different.
I find that my recovery's faster, and that delayed onset muscle soreness doesn't even happen anymore. Like I did like my personal. I had a personal best. I sent you the video last week for my deadlift, which
Yeah.
and I like next day I was fine. Like I
Yeah.
had, no soreness.
I still get sore, but I had a lot of nagging injuries before I did it. I had like this tendonitis that wouldn't go away, and I gave up running for a while. It wouldn't go away, and then now I don't even have it. Like I was seeing the chiropractor every week, and he was like scraping down the scar tissue and stuff, and just would not get better. And
Yeah.
now I'm back to running again and doing all this crazy stuff, and I don't have tendonitis.
That's
So
awesome.
stuff like that I've felt, and my mood's better. I have depression in my family, and I'll get depressed in the wintertime when it's dark and stuff. And I still get a little bit, but not nearly as much as I used to get it.
Yeah. And you're supplementing with B12.
No. Well, I do a shake line, Isogenics, and it has B12 in
Okay.
this tea that I drink every day.
Okay, that's
So I guess
and anybody
I'm
who's
supplementing.
considering it, the one thing I would say is that that's a must. You won't
Yeah.
notice that and by the time your liver will store B12, and I think you have like almost a 2 to 3 year store of B12 in your liver, and you will not notice the symptoms of the depletion until it's too late.
Yeah.
And so, and then it's hard to reverse those symptoms. So I do recommend that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I think 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast has
some.
your daily need. Unless I'm mistaken.
You know what? Let me go check my bottle.
That
At
might
least
be.
I think I read that somewhere, but I could be wrong. But I know that's an easy source.
So
You get
you
it,
know,
you sprinkle.
that's almost a lifestyle thing too. Like part of the reason that people who eat this way, who eat plant-based and whole food, they have vitamin B deficiency, B12 deficiency rather, is because we don't we wash everything. We don't really have dirt. We don't eat dirt. The B12 is in the dirt. So if you went out to your garden, pulled the carrot out of the ground, wiped it on your pants, and ate it, you would not have B12 deficiency.
Yeah.
But because we wash everything, because the soil's depleted, that's the thing. Is so a lot of people will say, oh well, you need to eat beef or liver because you need a lot of vitamin B12. there are certainly other ways to get it, and you don't have to get it that way. So animals that are higher in the food chain, they store things, which is why they have B12. But we also know that the big fish that live for a long time have a lot of mercury. So salmon and tuna and swordfish have a lot of mercury. Well, I don't recommend that you eat that particularly, but that's a similar type of thing to the B12. I don't mean to say that mercury is a vitamin by any means, but I'm saying that animals, as they get up in higher in the food chain, also, in addition to that type of thing, in particular, will store more toxins in their fat and in their organs than those lower in the food chain. So, what did you find out about that?
The nutritional
yeast?
yeast.
Yeah.
So 2 tablespoons has 0.03 micrograms, which is less than 1% of the recommended daily allowance.
All right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I was wrong.
So what is this one? This is what?
That's
How many
nutritional yeast.
micrograms? Yeah. 50 is
0.03.
what I think 50, isn't that the
I think so.
50 to 100?
Another really interesting study that I listened to the other day, for those who are considering a plant-based diet, is they were talking about, it's called, they were talking about this genetic material that when they first started studying the genome, they said this stuff is just junk. They couldn't really figure out what it was about. Now they've discovered that it's like a micro RNA, which is like it's like a ribonucleic acid, which is kind of a DNA, and it holds information that travels throughout your body. And they believe this micro RNA is what sends signals from one cell to the next to tell the cells what they're supposed to be doing. And what they're talking about is the animals that are being farmed on these massive factory farms, and what emotions those animals are feeling when they're brought to the slaughterhouse, and how they're, like, if you go and you watch them, how they're scared and they're frightened, and they're like, their behaviors are not like, so their bodies are now releasing all of that cortisol and all of those chemicals of fear and stress. Like, all of these stress hormones are being released by these animals right before they go to slaughter.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so if you really think about, like, so you're consuming those
hormones, like
those
the
hormones.
cortisol, which is associated with higher weight gain and
Yeah, so when you
Anxiety.
Diabetes.
and the microRNA from those animals are now becoming like part of your body, and the message signaling, and so there's like a whole new field of study that I'm just starting to hear a lot about with that.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's really like it's fascinating, and and I know people will say, well, I eat grass fed, but if you really read what the laws are and what the food the agriculture
Definition
department of grass fed, they could be turned out to pasture for 5 minutes before they're led to the slaughterhouse. It doesn't mean that they were like frolicking in this happy pasture for 25 years or 5 years or 10 years, however long it takes to grow a cow.
yeah.
It just means that for 5 minutes they were exposed
You
to
would
grass.
literally need to go know the farmer who's raising the animals to know what you're getting.
Yep, and I think that's one of the, as a small business owner, I always say shop local and shop small. And if a plant-based diet is not for you, then I would say shop local.
And
shop small.
we are lucky. We do have one of those in town, which is really nice. We have Sunset Farm, which is a really nice
Yep.
family-owned farm that that if we do, and Belmont does actually sell their products, which is nice.
There are
Yeah,
a
and
few
we have
around, for sure.
Pat's Pasture, which is right down on Jamestown, which Pat does a really,
He does a really nice job.
So I mean,
I've been to his farm too.
so there's other alternatives, but I would think too about like that energy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Yeah.
We didn't talk at all about the weight loss when we started this plant-based way. Part of the reason so Sue may have been doing this even irrespective of me, but I was, what happened was that during the same time that she was having these symptoms, I had gained weight for the first time in my life. I never gained weight. I mean, I could eat whatever I wanted. I never gained weight. And all of a sudden, I found myself 20 pounds overweight and not feeling very well. So I used to eat, a long time ago, in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a book written by Barry Sears called In the Zone.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Heard of it
Yeah,
or read
yeah.
it. I was really probably the first book about the glycemic index and how that plays out, and it was footnoted like crazy, and really had a lot of science behind it, and so I started eating that way, and so I was always fit, and I was always staying in a normal weight pattern, and I said, well, I'll just go back and eat like I used to eat, and I couldn't lose a pound, and it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
And so when we started doing this, the weight just poured off. It was 2 to 2.5 pounds a week every week for 10 weeks. I lost 20 pounds in 10 weeks, and I haven't put any of it back on, and it's been 4 years. So
That's
it's
amazing.
been really, really, it's been like really nice because I don't feel like I'm carrying any extra weight. I don't have joint pains because of that.
Yeah.
And
So what do you do with your
it's
sweet
really
tooth?
Well,
As I'm like, I lived having the
good. Oh
sweet
my
right
God!
now.
If you could have made that chocolate cake without oh my
I know, but
God.
Tara's training for a competition.
I know. That was nice. That was very nice of you.
Lord.
She could have just smelled it.
I know. Right now, I actually smell because I can't have peanut butter now for this month. So like, I'm like a peanut butter addict. Like, if people
Oh,
are
you
at work
can't have
eat
it?
peanut butter, and I'm like, let me just smell it.
Smell. I know. That's all I do.
So what do I do for my? I bake. Like I bake chocolate cakes, or I bake pies, or I bake. What else do I?
We go to
Wildflower, which is in
bakery, which is
it's in Pawtucket. It's a vegan, gluten-free. Well, it's vegan bakery. It's totally vegan. But they also offer gluten-free stuff too, and they make really good desserts and stuff and smoothies, and it has to be like a mile from my store.
Desserts are
So.
not as good as your desserts. Let's face it.
Aww.
Aw, thank
They're
you.
not.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
So there's a. We were talking about finding the right cookbooks, and
I can
there's
make some coconut whipped cream with some fresh fruit. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right, I'll do that.
so
Have
there's
you
a-
made coconut whipped cream yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh man, you're in for a treat. So there's a restaurant that opened in on Thayer Street called By Chloe. Have you heard of that?
No.
What's your last name? Cicciarelli?
Chloe,
Cicciarelli?
Coscarelli.
Coscarelli.
Oh my God, so I'm gonna watch. I'm
So
gonna watch her make
Chloe
this. Can I help you, Sue?
opened this restaurant, and it turns out we didn't really know this about her.
you do it?
We bought her
Yeah, you can help.
cookbook
It's like-
when we were in
it's really
California, and
It's really difficult.
it turns out that she's the first vegan
knowing that how much you were allowed to
baker who won the competition on one of those shows
Yeah.
for best dessert.
Oh, interesting.
So she was against all the others, and she won. And
I love to
Sue
cook it.
makes the chocolate cake from the cookbook, and I got to tell you, it's unbelievable.
Oh man.
So there's no flour in it.
Yeah.
just don't have.
I should say there is flour. There's no
But you
gluten
know what?
in the
About
flour.
6 months ago, I was like, I told
And
my husband,
there are
I'm
no
like,
eggs and there's no
I've been
dairy.
cooking
Yeah.
since I got my
And the thing that makes it rise is vinegar and baking soda, just like
Oh,
when you used to
interesting.
make a volcano
Right.
in grade school.
You gotta teach me,
It
so
makes
I taught him how
that.
to cook, and so now he cooks
That's
half
what
the time,
makes
and I
that
cook
dough
half.
rise, and it is the most
That's really nice.
He's good.
amazing
He's not too
flavor.
shabby.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. It's like there has never not been a single person who hasn't said,
I mean,
"Oh my God,
Yeah.
this is one of the best things I've ever had." So it's delicious. It really
So,
is.
just along the weight loss thing. So I don't know if Sue told you, but I'm kind of teetering down this path of having my own business on the side,
Yeah, I
and
figured as much.
and so it's called Iron Bowl Lifestyle.
Iron
And
Bowl. Yeah.
yeah, well, because I used to be called Bull in the China Shop,
Bull,
and
Iron
now
Bull.
I've started to accept that. Yeah, I'm stubborn. I don't back down. Like I never give up. So that was how the name came about. But we're gonna have 2 forms of coaching, and she's gonna coach clean eating, and I'm coaching plant-based eating.
Oh,
And so I'm doing a pilot group right now on Facebook, and I have a whole bunch of like people from work who were really
interested.
overweight doing it. One girl today just told me today that her cholesterol went from 190 to 143,
Yeah.
and that
that's
she's
awesome.
21 pounds down at 5 weeks.
At 5 weeks,
Yeah.
21 pounds.
5 weeks.
It's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Well, and
huh?
it's just so funny because now and I'm more I'm out on the floors at the hospital and stuff like that. And honestly, like I can't get my work done sometimes because I have all the girls in front of me going, okay, well, like first of all, they all confess their exercise to me. So like, oh, I just want you to know I rode my bike today, and I'm like, you're great. And then but they all want to like they're all like, what are you doing? What do you eat? Show me what you're eating. Like what you're doing. So it's really kind of a neat thing to like just kind of have them attracted to us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is good.
Yeah, it's cool. And Tara's been doing such a great job with this group. So what do you feed your dogs?
The dog.
What do the dogs get?
Usual.
Dogs are carnivores, so they actually get
They have to.
carnivorous.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my sister.
It's not healthy for them just to eat
I have
plants.
an older sister that's really kind of into all this stuff too, and she actually has a puppy, and she gives him raw,
Right.
raw,
Well, that's-
like throws a chicken bone, like a chicken thigh, out onto the deck, and he eats it, bones and all.
Oh.
Because that's how they did. She read this whole thing about how animals eat in the wild and how they survive
Yeah.
in the wild, and he is one that has never had any issues whatsoever.
Right.
Like he's an unbelievable dog. So what is this?
This is coconut. So what you do to make whipped cream when you're vegan
Yeah.
is you keep a can of coconut milk in the refrigerator.
Okay.
The whole fat coconut milk.
Yeah.
And the cream will solidify. And so what you do is you drain off all of the liquid, and you just take the solids, the coconut solids, and you put it into your mixer, and then you just beat it, and it becomes whipped cream.
That's it.
That's it.
And it's just
Yeah.
coconut milk.
Yeah, you turn on Michael Jackson, you beat it.
Beat it.
And then
Oh my god, I would love the corniness.
so
Oh yeah, not run chocolate
really
here.
cool.
I'm just super
Yeah,
resin.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Then we'll add a little. I use
Yeah.
organic cane sugar to make it a little bit sweet. And
Yeah.
I love your dogs, by the way.
I love your dogs.
oh my gosh.
So
love
I
that.
want to know more. So can we talk about something else for a second?
Yeah.
Right.
Just because I'm upset. So I clearly I really am fascinated by like the whole people that like find second marriages and find like love after like being divorced and like all that kind of stuff. Because
Oh,
like
okay.
that's what I want that. Like I
Yeah.
it'll probably make me cry if I start talking about it. But like that's something that I want and I know it will happen. And when I stop doing 7 million things, like he'll show up. So how has that been? Like, in like, what has it been like in like finding? Obviously, I'm gonna cry, but like finding like I can see that you guys have found something that was obviously very like
yeah.
I mean so special and like
Yeah.
how's like. But then you're also navigating new children and doing all that stuff too. I mean, it's a big project.
It was a very big project.
So tell me about that. Like it is a big, and I get that because I think that like I know for me like I have my own home and I have my kids and I'm like. I can see myself kind of almost living like separately for a little while. And before all that, like
It's funny, after we got married, Sue said, I could see myself doing that too. But we're a little late for that.
I'm like, yeah, I could have. Why did I keep my own house? It's we were both married. I will say we were both married for a very long time. The first time, both of us were married well over 20 years.
Yeah.
And we were married. Both of us had good people in our lives. They just weren't good for us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will, I think there's,
I think that's true.
Yeah. I feel that way. My ex-husband's the same way. Like great guy, just not the right husband for me.
yeah. And
And that's
so,
okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's okay,
Yeah.
and it is what it is, and it happens. And somebody once said to me, it's not that marriage. When you say "till death do you part," it's still death of the marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean till the death of your life, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel. But we love each other. We think like we're very grateful and very appreciative for what we have.
Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah.
tell each other and we try to show that to each other just about every day.
Yeah.
And we have a therapist and it's always funny. We're like, we're not in therapy about us. We're about therapy that all the other people are trying to climb into our dinghy with us.
Yeah.
All of our,
Yeah, we're kind of fine with that. It's just all the other stuff that tries to rip it apart.
Like
And
what?
it's-
If you don't want me to ask you.
We had children.
Like the kids?
Yeah, challenges
Yeah.
with our adult children.
Yeah, everybody has that. It's probably everybody. I mean,
Yes.
most people could use a therapist.
Yeah,
to help
oh,
them
totally.
through-
I think
through
everyone should have
navigate
one.
through
Yeah. Yeah.
We came
Definitely.
from very different walks of life. Like I was working, I was working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and he, he's a physician. He had a beautiful career and a very nice lifestyle.
Yeah, sorry, anyway.
So, no, you're okay. So we had to, figure out how to blend these 2 very different lifestyles
Yeah.
that we were both accustomed to living, and had to adjust to that.
And how is it for you? So and this, because I feel like this is always my struggle, is a leaning into that. Because you seem like someone like myself who's very independent and strong, and and I've had the experience where I've had these great guys come in, and I'm I struggle leaning into the help, leaning into the the partnership again, because I feel like I've been so independent as a survival mode because I've had to.
Yeah,
Because I've had to do it, and
Oh, I was tough. I was tough, and I would be like when we were dating, I would half the time he could have afforded to take me out to dinner every night of the week, but I'd be like, no, I'm paying for my dinner, and no, I'm I had to pay my own way, do my own thing, and he was smart enough to have the patience to just let me be me.
I think that was a lot of it. That you had patience for me, and I had patience for you.
yeah.
So
And it's not easy. It's just, for us, it's been, we just know that the prime directive is that we're the important
You're the
ones
important
in this relationship,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everybody else is secondary.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
they
it's,
can't,
go ahead.
they can't take over. They can't
Yeah.
become the primary. Those are the boundaries. But
Yeah.
making the boundaries is really difficult.
Don't let people into
Especially
your
with
energy
children,
field.
especially when it comes to the
Exactly.
children, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still do it all the time. We still sometimes fall down on that job, but we're here to remind each other that that's really, we gotta set those boundaries.
And I always feel like he has my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
It's a very supportive relationship. We have
We're
our
very
arguments.
grateful. Yeah. Oh, yes, clearly. But we're very grateful. I mean, grateful for what we got.
Yeah, and I think we both knew what
Doc,
what
get off
mistakes
the
we
table.
we owned our mistakes from our first marriages, and figured out I was like, well, what behaviors did I have in my first marriage that really kind of didn't help the situation, and I've tried I'm a type A personality, and I like to be in charge, and I like things done my way and on my time, and I've had to really let go,
Yeah.
and that's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Tara and I, it's funny how those relationships or those things come out very, not necessarily, they come out organically with people that you surround yourself with. Because even Tara and I had a conversation the other day, and she's like, so I see that you really like to be in control of some things, and I really kind of see that as she and I are partnershiping, and I'm like, oh, maybe I could work on that with you, so that when my husband shows up, it's such a struggle with that. So we'll practice for a little while. But again, I think that I really had to operate on that for a couple of reasons. One, because I was the breadwinner and I was a breadwinner in my marriage, and I was the one who handled everything. And so then now that I'm not married, I'm still handling. I have to handle it. It's me. It's me who handles everything. So part of that has been a matter of survival. The control.
No, it was that was it for me too. I was the breadwinner in the end of my marriage. I was.
You know what I find really interesting is I actually had the unique experience of knowing both of you before the
after.
relationship,
Right.
before you guys
True
got
that.
together, and seeing how you guys changed each other.
What did you say?
That
Well,
happened.
I will say, Scott, you were very, very particular when I worked with you.
I'm not
And-
so much anymore.
And I think that was probably because you probably had a lot of stuff going on at home, and so
Is it
what do
probably
we
the
do
place where I
when
was-
things aren't in control in other aspects of our life?
Yeah,
We
it's
tend to
gotta
be
be
very
controlled.
controlling.
I think there's
At work.
forks already on the
And
floor. Yeah, want some
once you started dating Sue, you started to smile again, and you're kind of giddy and funny, and I was like, oh, who is this? Who is this new
Yeah.
partner?
Yeah, that definitely.
Well, you get into that mode where it's survival. I mean, at the
Yeah.
end of every, we all been there. At the end, it's like that survival
Do you
where
want
you're
more
just
water?
like,
Anybody want more water?
I'm good.
I'll take some more here. Thank you.
And I saw Sue from, the end of her first marriage and then to being alone and then to
I can't believe this is
entering this new one.
unbelievable.
I can try it.
What is this? This is just coconut milk.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, it's
Oh my gosh. So delicious.
Oh my god, that's so good. Let me take a picture of that too.
I just want to move in with you people.
Just what they need, Tara. A giant.
We're going to get in your dinghy.
We have good energy though.
You can come in.